Hey everyone, and welcome. So, have you ever lost an entire weekend just wrestling with a new server deployment? You know the pain. Well, today, we're going to dive into Windows Server 2025 and see if its new deployment accelerators are finally the answer to those setup headaches we all know way too well.
I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? You're clicking through wizards, you're running these super complex scripts, triple-checking every single setting, and then, boom, one tiny typo brings the whole thing grinding to a halt. It's so frustrating. It's a huge time sink, and honestly, you just sit there thinking, there has to be a better way than this.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. We'll start by talking about the old server struggle, just to set the stage. Then, we'll get into the new, smarter philosophy behind Server 2025. After that, we're going to peek inside the toolkit itself, look at the real-world payoffs, and wrap up with what all this really means for you. Okay, first up, let's talk about that old server struggle. You know, the good old days of manual, error-prone configurations.
And the hurdles? They're pretty obvious, right? For starters, those manual configs just take forever. You're always up against the clock. This leads to something called configuration drift, which is just a fancy way of saying no two servers end up being exactly alike. And that makes troubleshooting a total nightmare. Plus, one little human error, one typo, and poof, you've got downtime. Then you throw in the whole hybrid cloud mess, trying to manage on-prem and cloud stuff together, the whole thing just becomes a house of cards.
So how do we fix all this? Well, it all comes down to a much smarter deployment philosophy that's baked right into Server 2025. And that's where these deployment accelerators come in. Now, this is really important. Deployment accelerators isn't just some single new feature. It's a whole collection of tools, and honestly, a fundamental shift in how we should be thinking. The whole goal is to ditch those manual step-by-step instructions and move to a system that's way faster, way simpler, and, this is key, completely standardized.
Okay, so that's the philosophy. But how does it actually work in the real world? Let's pop the hood and take a look inside this accelerator toolkit at the key tools that are changing the game.
First up, we've got something called Network ATC. And the one word you really need to remember here is intent. See, instead of writing these long, complicated scripts for every single network adapter, you just declare your intent. You literally just say, hey, this network is for storage, or this one's for compute traffic, and bam! Network ATC goes and handles all the nitty-gritty configuration for you, automatically.
And this comparison just shows it all perfectly. On the one hand, you've got the old way, that nightmare of long, complex scripts where one typo could ruin your day. On the other hand, the new way. You declare a simple intent, and the system just does the right thing. It applies a consistent, best practice configuration across every single server. It is a massive leap forward for reliability.
All right, next up in our toolkit is a much deeper integration with Azure Arc. Now, the best way to think of Arc is like a bridge. It literally connects your on-prem servers, you know, the ones sitting in your own data center, directly to the Azure control plane. This means you can manage everything from a single spot.
And again, the difference is just night and day. We're going from juggling a bunch of different, disconnected tools for on-prem and cloud to having what we call a single pane of glass in Azure. Basically, one screen to rule them all. But look, this is way more than just convenience. It means you can use the same security policies, the same patching schedules, the same monitoring for your local servers as if they were running natively in Azure. It takes hybrid management from this crazy juggling act and turns it into one unified strategic operation.
Okay, tool number 3 is a huge enhancement to software-defined networking, or SDN. In the past, the brain of your virtual network, the network controller, needed its own little army of dedicated virtual machines just to run. It was a whole separate thing to manage. Well, now, that entire complex setup is just gone. It now runs directly on your physical servers as a simple built-in service. I mean, just think about the overhead of the old way for a second. You had to deploy multiple VMs for this thing. Then you had to configure high availability for them. Then you had to patch them separately. And all this time, they're just sitting there, eating up precious CPU and RAM on your hosts that you could have been using for your actual apps and workloads. And the new way? It's just this. Simple. All of that insane complexity with deploying, configuring, and patching, gone. It's been replaced by one single simplified, highly available service. This isn't just some small tweak, folks. This is a massive win for resource optimization. It gives you back your hardware for the things that actually matter. And last but not least, we have AccelNet. This basically brings a super powerful Azure networking feature right down to your on-prem servers.
Think of it like a high-speed HOV lane for your VM's network traffic. It lets the data completely bypass the virtual switch, which is kind of like the slow local traffic cop, and talk directly to the physical hardware. The result? Way lower latency and less CPU getting wasted, which is a huge deal for your most demanding apps.
So we've seen the cool new tools, but now for the most important question. So what? What does this all actually mean for your organization? Let's connect the dots from these features to the real, tangible benefits.
And this table just lays it all out perfectly. You've got a challenge, and there's a tool with a clear payoff. Worried about manual network errors? Network ATC brings consistency and speed. Drowning in hybrid complexity? Azure Arc gives you unified management. Tired of management overhead? The SDN enhancements give you back your resources. And those VM network bottlenecks? ExcelNet is here for better performance. It's a direct line from problem to solution.
And if we break it down visually, you can see where the big wins are. The biggest piece of the pie is faster provisioning, just getting your servers up and running much quicker. But right behind that, you've got a huge boost in consistency, which means fewer errors and less downtime. And of course, that hybrid simplicity and resource optimization are pretty sweet benefits too.
All right, let's bring this all home. Let's talk about what this really means for you and for the future of server administration in general.
You know, this quote right here really gets to the heart of the whole thing. The role of the IT pro is changing. It's moving away from being a reactive firefighter who's an expert at writing crazy complex scripts, and it's shifting towards being a proactive architect. Someone who defines what the end state should look like and then lets powerful automation handle the how. And that really brings us to the final, and maybe the most important question. With all this powerful automation handling the tedious how, it frees you up. So the question for you is, how are you going to use that extra time and brainpower to focus on the bigger picture? You know, the strategic what and the business-driven why behind your infrastructure. Because that's the real opportunity here.